5. So, then what happened? Archer's friend Suki leaned over the lunchroom table and stared at him with giant black eyes surrounded by soft pink eyeshadow as she asked the question. She twirled her chunky amethyst necklace with one hand, being careful not to tangle her black and pink hair as she fidgeted. Knowing Suki, Archer thought she would be very disappointed if he didn't mention ghosts or spirits. Next to Suki, Mabel and their friend Fernanda also waited for Archer to finish telling them what had happened during his babysitting visit to Spite Lane. Tyler's dad came in from outside, paid me, and I left, Archer said. He took a bite of his turkey sandwich and shrugged. That's it, Suki cried, dropping the necklace and letting it noisily drop onto the lunch table. Did you at least tell the dad what you saw? Fernanda asked, with a confused frown. Archer chewed and swallowed. I mean, he has to already know there are bees in his cellar, right? It's his house. Fair point, replied Fernanda, letting it drop. Mabel pursed her lips uncomfortably. Her aromatic curry sat untouched in her tiffin. She poked at it with a fork, then tried to change the conversation. So, hey, y'all, I was thinking we could hang out this weekend and— Wait, Suki cried dramatically, preventing Mabel from moving on. Archer, you have to talk to the dad. What if he doesn't know he has bees in the basement? What if they're haunted bees? We're talking about Spite Lane after all. I'm sure the bees aren't haunted, Mabel scoffed, with an exaggerated roll of her eyes. Haunted or not haunted? Either way, I'm not going back, Archer said, wiping away crumbs from the corners of his mouth. What? Mabel exclaimed, slapping her hand on the table. Not going back? You're supposed to babysit again tomorrow. Touchy, Archer scolded. Why do you even care? Because, Mabel stuttered. It's my reputation on the line? I'm the one that got you that job, and I'm the one that will be in trouble if you don't return. Archer narrowed his eyes. The way Mabel said it, he didn't think that was the main reason. Once again, she was acting strangely. Archer sighed. Look, between the bees and the weird smoke thing, it just doesn't feel right. I'm not going back. I'm sorry, Mabel. You'll need to find someone else. Suki sat up straight with excitement and clapped her hands. I could do it. I could try to speak to the bees. Find out what they want. Suki Saito was a firm believer in magic and mysticism. She helped her mother, a semi-famous psychic on TikTok, provide palm and tarot readings at local festivals. And she was certain she had second sight, a kind of clairvoyance that would allow her to talk to the dead and see into the future. She was always looking for opportunities to hone her clairvoyant gifts. This is good, Suki said, dreamily. I've always wanted to find out what's really going on over at Spite Lane. The bees must know something. I'm sure all the bees want is their hive back, Mabel argued. What weird smoke thing? Fernanda asked Archer, circling back. Archer explained. At one point, I looked outside and Mr. Timberlake was outside using this big can to spray smoke at the hives. It was super weird. I was going to ask him about it, but he waved his hand dismissively as his voice trailed off. Smoke is sometimes used to clear bees out of their hive, Fernanda explained. so the beekeeper can clean or repair it. Oh, Archer said. That makes sense. Mr. Timberlake said he had a lot of work to do to prep the hives for winter. If he left a window to the cellar open, maybe the bees flew inside. Fernanda continued. Maybe he smoked them into his own house, accidentally. Archer considered this. I suppose that might have been it. But it was so many bees. Like millions. You said it was dark down there. Mabel jumped in, latching on to Fernanda's explanation. Are you sure there were millions of bees? It could have been your eyes playing tricks on you. Archer scowled at Mabel. If you go back, let me go with you, Suki offered. Maybe the previous owner of the house died, and the bees were there to mourn him. We could hold a seance, and I'm not going back, Archer said, eating the last of his sandwich and noisily opening a baggie of chips. He pulled out a chip and wagged it at Suki and the others. And that's final. When the bell rang at the end of the school day, Archer gathered his things and made his way into the hallway towards the back doors of the school. The crowd of Knoxville students moved forward sluggishly as those boarding school buses or waiting for parents to pick them up blocked the way of those who lived close enough to walk. It was no matter. Archer wasn't in a hurry. He stuck his hands in his pockets where his fingers hit his wallet. Unconsciously, he grinned in pride. With $10 of remaining birthday cash and $30 from his babysitting gig, there was enough for 4 more history papers. He felt slightly guilty about leaving Mabel in the lurch, but with $40, he had plenty of time to figure out a new money-making enterprise, one with fewer insects. Archer's reverie was broken by the uncomfortable feeling of someone bumping into him from behind, over and over. As soon as they were out the door, Archer moved to the side, hoping the other student would pass. Instead, he felt breath on his ear. I know your dirty little secret, Archer Abel, said a stinky whisper. Archer looked back and saw Gus Rumson, linebacker for the Knoxville football team, giving him a knowing smirk. He suddenly knew what it meant to have his blood run cold. Why don't we have a chat? Breathed Gus. Archer held his breath as Gus hooked an arm through Archer's and led them to a patch of grass adjacent to the bus circle. I don't know what you're talking about, Archer stammered. Sure you do, said Gus, as he backed Archer up against a brick wall. I saw you and that nerd Parker yesterday, and when I asked him about what you were talking about, he told me everything. Whatever he said, he was lying. I'm sure he wasn't, Gus said, leaning in so close Archer could feel his breath. Gus lowered his voice. You know, I could use some help with my history homework, too. Gus smelled like he'd eaten onion rings with garlic dip for lunch. Archer held his breath. Too bad I don't have any cash, Gus went on. But I bet you could lend me some. Couldn't you? Archer looked around for a teacher, but no one was in sight. Just students, and none of them gave a hoot about Archer or Gus. Archer felt like throwing up. I don't have any money. Sorry, Archer groaned. You sure about that? I'd hate to find out you were lying. I might have to go tell the teacher what's really going on. No, Archer blurted emphatically. He reached into his pocket. Hold on, Maybe I have something. Archer slipped out his wallet out of his pants. But before he could look inside, Gus snatched it and stuffed it into his coat. "I'll be taking that, Archie, my old friend," Gus said sarcastically. "I'll keep it safe for you until we meet again. Now, why don't you go home, and we'll pretend this conversation never happened." Archer gulped. Gus gave Archer a patronizing pat on the cheek and walked away. Archer was left reeling in shock and shame.